Hey guys, I am here to tell you about yet another case of a one-sourced, unvetted story going viral. We saw this, I guess less than a year ago with the patients overdosing on ivermectin, backing up hospitals, leaving gunshot wounds, victims waiting. We saw that and we were able to in about an hour, pretty much debunk that story. And we have another case of that with this 10-year-old needing to seek an abortion across state lines because of the Roe v. Wade overturn, so much so that a president is now using it in his speeches. And this story is falling apart. And much of it is falling apart thanks to the work of Megan Fox, who works for PJ Media. She's also an award-winning journalist, broadcaster, and author of Believe Evidence, The Death of Due Process from Salome to #MeToo, and Shut Up the Bizarre War That One Public Library Waged Against the First Amendment. So I'm going to go ahead and bring in Megan Fox. Megan, thanks for being on today.
Thanks for having me.
So it's crazy to see how actually quickly you can tear these stories apart that have legs. This is yet another case that's so similar to the one about ivermectin, where it all started from one local place and then just spread to all the national news outlets. So tell me, before we get into that, actually, tell me about your background and how it was that you ended up working for PJ Media.
Sure. I was in broadcasting starting out early in my career. I was doing like odd jobs like marketing and, secretarial work in different radio stations. And I was working for the company Premier Radio Networks, where Rush Limbaugh broadcast for many, many years. And through those types of contacts, I just continued in broadcasting. I ended up writing on a blog and then eventually getting paid to write for other people's blogs. And that led to PJ Media, where I've been doing journalism work and news reporting and opinion writing for about 20 years. So it's funny you should bring up that ivermectin story, because I also dug into that. I have a recording somewhere on my computer that I haven't been able to dig up of me calling the hospital and them hanging up on me and, confirming
no. Same thing to me.
Yeah, and confirming.
It's crazy that a hospital you would call, you're just asking, what can you tell me about this major problem in your hospital? Yeah. And they're like, they just said, we don't have any comment on that, and then hung up. Then they end up releasing their statement, which just blows apart the whole story. But I'm sorry, go on.
No, and the doctor, okay, so the reason it's great that you brought that up, because that also was a single source, one doctor who turns out to not even work there regularly. So, and he hadn't been there in something like 3 months is what I finally figured out. And I had called the sheriffs in the local area asking about gunshot victims. None of them had heard of, they're like, here in this town? It was like this tiny little town somewhere. I don't even remember where. But they were like, no, there's been no gunshots. I said, well, would you have reports of a gunshot that came into a hospital? Oh, yeah. We would have reports. There was no report. This was just completely made up baloney. And so that's your first clue. Like when it's one single source, and that single source happens to be, I don't know, an activist abortionist like Dr. Caitlin Bernard, you really need to start asking questions, which is what I did. And that's all I did. I just started asking questions. And my questions, I started a tweet research thread as I was researching it. I literally just did it live. It took me a few hours to run down who is Caitlin Bernard, where has she been in the news recently, how fast did this story spread? That was really one of the most, oh, wow.
Shocking.
When something goes viral and you're like, and there's no new information in any of the stories. It's just repeating. That's another red flag. It's another sign that there could be something wrong here. Now, look, let me say right off the bat, the story has still not been confirmed to be a hoax or not. It is still possible. While I'm leaning towards hoax, it is still possible that there is a 10-year-old victim out there. And that's even more frightening. If part of this story is true, because parts of it are already not true, let's start with what's not true. There is no 6-week cutoff for abortions in Ohio. The Attorney General, Yost, on Jesse Waters the other night, confirmed that child would have been eligible for an emergency medical treatment if that was the situation under Ohio law. So now we found out that the child did not have to leave Ohio. That was the first lie. The second, I believe, was this saying that she heard from another doctor in Ohio who was a child abuse doctor. Well, if that were the case, the child abuse doctor was required to report that to law enforcement. The attorney general says there hasn't even been a whisper of any report in Ohio anywhere, and he has been reaching out to law enforcement, to prosecutors, so many people, and no one has heard of this in Ohio. So that means one of two things: the doctor broke the law and didn't report this for some nefarious reason, or two, there was no doctor in Ohio and the child was simply taken to Indiana from Ohio, possibly to avoid prosecution, because Ohio's laws are so strict when it comes to child rape. Attorney General Yost said you get life in prison for that in Ohio. Is it possible that a rapist took his victim across state lines without seeing an Ohio doctor and found Caitlin Bernard to do the deed? And did she cover up evidence? Did she destroy evidence? These are all questions that need to be answered. We still don't have those answers. Fox is now saying, I don't know if you've seen this, Fox News is claiming that they have corroborated part of the story, and they're saying that the 10-year-old exists. Now, their evidence for this is an unnamed source.
Of course.
They say is familiar with the investigation. That could literally be Caitlin Bernard, and they haven't named the source. So still, this is not confirmed. That doesn't mean that it didn't happen. It just means that we do not have. Now, there is information floating around that I have been told from what I believe is a credible source that there could be a report. There may be a report, a mandated report in Indiana about this child. I have FOIAs out to all the right regulatory agencies that should be releasing that, but FOIA takes a lot of time. And I've been telling people on Twitter today or yesterday, I'm getting my days mixed up, that I've been telling them to be careful going forward with the story, because it is now like an active shooter situation, and you have every media company on earth trying to be the first to get this story right, which means somebody's going to make a mistake. There's going to be more misinformation put out there, and everybody should just hold off and wait. And I'm not going to report any new thing until I get it in my hot little hands from the state of Indiana.
But isn't even that a hurdle in and of itself as far as the FOIA goes, because of the medical and criminal nature of this whole accusation? I mean, because of HIPAA laws and in the child and everything, isn't that also kind of been a hurdle in certain things that you can even ask FOIA requests?
Well, yeah, but still, it can be confirmed, and this is why it's so unreasonable that the other news organizations didn't do this. FOIA will be redacted, of course, for the privacy of the victim, which is accepted and expected. But what will not be redacted is a mandated report of suspected child abuse and any police investigation into it. Now, the law in Indiana says that any suspected child abuse must be reported within 24 hours by phone by the doctor to DCS, the Children's Services. So if Caitlin Bernard suspected child abuse, which you would have to do if a pregnant 10-year-old came into your office, you have to make that call. A 10-year-old can't consent. So if she made the call went to Department of Child Services and they wrote a written report. That report is publicly available with the names redacted off of it. The unredacted report can be seen by law enforcement. So the unredacted report in Indiana can be sent to Ohio for their child services. It can be sent to the Ohio prosecutor. Was any of that done? That's what we're looking into, and that's what we're going to find out if this situation happened. Now, there's lots of red flags, though, about was this used as a political weapon. I actually hope this story really is fake, because that is far less upsetting than learning that this actually happened to a child and an abortion doctor used her tragedy as a political weapon to hurt pro-life laws in this country. That is so cynical and so horrifying. I don't even want to consider the possibility, but maybe that's what happened.
Yeah, I mean, there's no good answer or resolution to this, but that's the other part of this that you really pointed out in your thread. And again, folks, if you want to see the whole breakdown, you can go to Megan Fox Writer on Twitter, and there's a whole thread about this. I believe it's still pinned to the top, but you point out, good. Oh, but you did point out the timing aspect of this, and you were able to dig back. Who is this abortion doctor? And she shockingly, almost predicted this would happen. Can you explain to me what you're
Yeah, sure. Let me actually share the screen with you. I want to show you something. So
good? You know how to do those things.
Yeah, all you have to do is
Powerful.
click on it, I think, so it'll show up on the.
Let me add to stream. Okay.
All right,
There we
so
go.
let's look at this. This is my little spreadsheet here that I've made showing the spread over the news and Dr. Caitlin Bernard's participation in it. So here we see in 2017, she was in the New York Times talking about a Trump abortion ban in Kenya. So she's someone that at least the New York Times is familiar with, and she talks about abortion restriction in the news. Then in 2018, she has this Medium page about women's health. So she has a presence where media can contact her. In 2019, she sued the state of Indiana to continue dismemberment abortions in the second trimester. And she won, and there was an injunction put against the state of Indiana so that she could continue her abortion business, I guess. And that was in danger of being lifted with the overturning of Roe v. Wade, which it was then lifted. And so you can see right here from June 24th through June 29th, she went on a media
blitz.
Blitz. Look at this. The Center Square, women are going to die. Fox 59, Road Doomsday. WFYI PBS, Road Doomsday. WRTV Indianapolis, Road Doomsday. Now, these are all the articles where she was, and she was also on news, like television, I mean. These are just the written articles, but she was also all over the news, predicting doom, predicting that there was going to be all kinds of bad things. Here's another one, Road Doomsday in Politico. Fox 59, here she is again. She's talking about how women are going to give themselves self-abortions. That was on July 1st. So through June 24th through July 1st, she was predicting all these horror scenarios. Now, on the same day, July 1st, is when the Indiana Star printed the pregnant 10-year-old story. The same day. Yeah. And here it is. Now she's claiming that a horror story that she's been predicting has actually happened. Now, here's how it spread across the news and how quickly. As you can see, on the same day, the Daily Mail picked it up, Yahoo News picked it up. Then the next day, the Daily Beast, the Huffington Post, The Hill, Newsweek, and then on the following, the third, Politico, Mother Jones, The Guardian, TMZ on the 4th, MSNBC on the 5th, Washington Post, Jennifer Rubin, she did a op-ed on the 5th, Michigan Advance, Inform, letter to the editor, The Republic, again on 7/5, on July 5, she's in another interview, women are going to die. That was what the topic was about. Women are going to die. And then we have self-abortion. Same day, she was in the Herald Bulletin doing more media blitz. Same day, Fox 5, and then me on the 5th. This was the same day I started asking questions, by the way, on the 5th. So my tweet thread starts on the 5th. Then you have, after my tweet thread, Snopes. So a bunch of people started asking Snopes, what the heck is going on here, and is this real? Snopes couldn't confirm it. Teen Vogue on 7/6, 7/7, the Columbus Dispatch. So look at these. I mean, this is huge. The Washington Post, I haven't even finished this yet because there's just so much. There's so much to catch up on. This was just the first couple days. After the 5th was the first time after I started my thread that all of a sudden people started retweeting it. It went super viral. I think 3 million interactions or something like that. However you read those Twitter analysis, I don't really know, but it's up to like 3 million now. After that, that's when people started to ask questions and it kind of went super viral. And then Glenn Kessler at the Washington Post did a fact check, which she basically just found the same thing I did. So I don't know.
This was ridiculous. I mean, and people should really look into this because he posts this, a one source story, and he writes it like a fact check. And you read the article, and I read it right after reading through your Twitter thread. And it's like he just completely, it's like he didn't even have any of his own original ideas. He pointed out all of the same things in pretty much the same order. It was a
I
total
know.
ripoff. And
And
he
he
doesn't
never
even,
credited.
he
Yeah, no,
never
he didn't
credits
credit.
you. He doesn't source you at all. It's insane.
And then what happened, because he did that, that allowed bigger news organizations to then give him the credit for doing the fact check, which is like, it's just maddening, because
You don't want
I keep,
anybody in their little club, any alternative
yeah,
media can't possibly get the credit that they're doing when they're the ones with the feet on the ground
but
actually
it's
trying to speak the
pretty
truth.
easy to see who had the fact check first. I did mine on July 5th. When did Glenn Kessler report this in his fact check? July 9th. That's a lot of days, Glenn. That's a lot of days to have gone by for you to try and claim that it was your original idea, because it really wasn't. And
It really
that's
wasn't.
okay. And that's
Yeah.
okay. I'm glad the story got out. I'm glad somebody did some fact checking, and Glenn came to the exact same conclusion that I did, except that at the bottom of his article, his main takeaway was, well, we have to take this as fact based because it's been said so many times. What?
That's the crazy part. Also, Megan, is because it's called a fact check, but you read through the whole article and it's not like your typical fact check where it will say like false, misleading, anything. There's nothing. It's just like, here's, some concerns essentially. But yeah, we can't prove that it's not true. So there you go. That's kind of what I got.
Yeah, he said it was fact based because so many people had repeated it. And it's like, wait a minute. That is not the standard. And if it is the standard,
It becomes a fact when President Biden says it in his speech, right, Megan? I mean,
it's
duh.
so nuts. It's like, if that's the standard, we have a really big problem. It's worse than I thought in the media, because he should have said, this is unconfirmed. Here's the bottom line is, it's unconfirmed and uncorroborated and unverified. At that point, I
And
believe,
like you said, raises bigger concerns. If there's any thread of truth to this, then we need to be concerned about why this abuse wasn't reported as it should be and what the follow-up is on this.
yeah, and if it was reported, which possibly she made that call, okay, we don't know yet, because the state FOIAs take a really long time. This could take 30 days. So, until I hear back from someone in Indiana government about this report, I don't know if she reported it or not, but that is definitely what we need to find out. Now, Caitlin Bernard is not responding to any media asking her that question. Now, why isn't she responding? We just saw how Caitlin Bernard loves to be in the news. It's not that she's shy talking to reporters. She just doesn't want to tell people whether or not she reported this as a crime, or did her mandating reporting job. Now, I don't know. Maybe she has other reasons why she doesn't want to say. Maybe there's something else going on. We don't know. But I will say this. We will get to the bottom of that. We will find out if there was a mandated report, because it's public information. But it is going to take some time. And I'm a little bit afraid that the news cycle will have just moved on by the time that information comes in. And Glenn Kessler's word about it being, basically truthy in nature will be the last word on it, because that's all anyone pays attention to is mainstream big media press.
Well, that's the deeper issue here, Megan, is when we were able to, through both of our efforts and other independent journalists, able to essentially debunk this story about the patients overdosing on ivermectin backing up hospitals, fake phony story. What happened was there really wasn't retractions. There was
No.
editor's notes. In my case, I called the news director of the original story, the one sourced story that then spread to the national outlets like Rolling Stone, MSN, etc. I was calling them for 9 days straight. The news director wouldn't call me back. And I mean,
what was that publication? What was the original publication on that? I forgot.
KFOR in Oklahoma.
That's right. KFOR. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'd been calling, I'd been emailing, and it was really disgusting to me, because I've worked at multiple news stations as the lead anchor, and I couldn't imagine other news directors I've worked for just not even responding to somebody
Right.
that's calling. And I mean, for
I know.
such a big accusation. So not only did I never get a response, but finally on day 9, I believe it was, and I was checking the story over and over again, because there was already other sources that were adding editor's notes or whatever. And they still hadn't. So I was checking. I believe it was day 9. Suddenly it was an editor's note that was like, we care about facts, blah, blah, blah. And I mean, it's like, but then that directly contradicts what you allowed to happen here. So that's another trend I'm seeing is this lack of ownership and lack of accountability when it comes to journalism. When there are questions raised and when there are mistakes made, there's like no such thing as a retraction anymore or an own. It's just like
No.
editors know.
And let's talk about the Indianapolis Star, by the way. So the Indianapolis Star is the original publication that this came out in. Sherry Radavsky and Rachel Fredette are the 2 authors of this article. They both refused to respond to comment. And I asked them very easy questions, which is, what vetting did you do? Now, these are, if someone were to contact me about a story I ran and said to me, what vetting did you do? And what evidence do you have that this story is true? I would respond to them with my receipts. Now, normally I print my receipts in the doc in my publication, but if for some reason I hadn't, I would respond to that. If someone was accusing me of not doing my job, I would be all over that. I also reached out to Bro Crift. Bro Crift is the editor of the Indianapolis Star. He never responded to me, and I sent him a letter basically saying, what are your vetting processes? How did this story get vetted? Did you get any secondary or third sources on this? Please clarify, because it's not clear. No response. Now, when Jesse Waters reached out to him, he did have a response. His response, Christy, was that the reporting was clear. So basically, go F yourself. Our reporting was clear, and we have nothing else to say. What? The report, it's not clear. You cannot run a story with one source. I mean, unless I'm trying to think of when it would be appropriate to do a one source story. Perhaps if the other side doesn't respond, then yes, you could run.
That's dead now too. Is like this concept of we're just going to go with this one side and we're not even going to say we attempted to reach out or this is what the other side. I mean, this is basically the root of why I ended up leaving traditional news. Is I was just so shocked about the whole frontline doctor situation. I had other colleagues that I'd worked with being like, yeah, get them off, shut their voice. I'm like, have we all forgotten that a tenet of journalism is to be a voice for the voiceless, and these people are getting their voices taken away? Sure, they appear to be at this moment the minority in terms of the agreement on if these alternative medications work, but what happened to the majority of doctors, according to the CDC, believe this, but there's a group that's come together that say they found evidence otherwise, and then I don't know, maybe letting the viewers weigh the evidence and decide for themselves. I mean,
there doesn't seem to be any. They don't, it's all about narrative pushing and agenda. It's not about reaching out and finding out what the other side says. If it were, the Indianapolis Star could have very easily reached out to Ohio legislators or the Ohio Attorney General, Yost, who was on Fox News the other night, and ask, is this true about this bill? Would a 10-year-old not be able to get care if she was raped and this is the situation? And they would have been told right there that the premise for this story that they ran was not correct. It was a hoax. It was not true. Now, I don't know. I'm not calling the 10-year-old a hoax. I'm saying the idea that this scenario could happen and the child would have to leave the state was false. And they could have found that out, but they never called. They didn't even read the bill. I read the bill. I didn't see anything in the bill about a 6-week cutoff. Now, for some reason, when you read some of the summaries of this bill, which is probably what they did, in the summary, it has a 6-week, it says something about 6 weeks. But when you go into the actual language of the bill, it's about fetal heartbeat detection, which can be heard at 6 weeks, but also there's like a period of a couple weeks in there where it might not. So there's no actual time period codified into the law that I could find.
But even that, like in many of these cases, if the health or life of the mother is in some way a threat, that's also an exception. And I don't think it's necessarily safe or healthy for a 10-year-old to be trying to take a baby to term.
No, and I certainly would think that medical professionals would be absolutely asking those questions in that kind of situation and would have some more expertise than I do. But that's like one of those things that absolutely could fall under an exception. I mean, the idea that we're even talking about this is crazy. But there's this other thing happening where people who are pro abortion are like so rabid about this that they would rather force a 10-year-old to have an abortion than even have and call that not traumatizing. Like they're accusing one side of you would force her to give birth, while at the same time they're saying force her to get an abortion. Is anybody asking the 10-year-old? Really, the one who's been assaulted, the one who's already been thrust into adulthood through this situation? I think the 10-year-old should get some say in some of this, because my God, let's not force any rape victim to do anything without their consent at this point. That it's crazy. And I just don't agree that giving birth is as traumatic or equally or more traumatic than an abortion. I don't see how it's either one. They're kind of maybe equal, but I think one is less so. And I think that's the one that ends with a baby, a live one. But I don't know. I'm not in the position of being an Ohio doctor who's going to make that decision. But I just don't like the way the narrative is being presented, as if the abortion fixes rape. I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, no. But that's the problem, is this whole narrative situation we have, whether the 10-year-old exists or not. This story is a hoax in the sense that there's definitely problems, and there was definitely lack of vetting and sourcing. And here's another case, like I said, of one sourced story, no other viewpoint, getting legs from a local station and spreading like wildfire. And so here's my question. Like, I mean, is this the new standard? I mean, people, you can see that from the polls and Gallup and things like that, that people have lost complete trust in the media, and yet they continue to do these things that are just malfeasant. It's not good journalism. And so, I mean, is this just something that we have to accept now?
Yes, it is. It is. It's been like this for years now, and I don't know if it's laziness or if it's intentional. I think some of it's intentional, but I think a lot of it is also that media is kind of dying in a way, because the big media anyway, they used to have such a hold on it, and there were real journalists who would pound the pavement and do the legwork. Now there isn't time. Everyone's trying to beat everyone else to the story, and so reporters don't have time to really dig into something. And like I said, it takes time. When I do investigative stories, I am sometimes working on a story for 2 months before I can write about it, sometimes 6. It depends on what kind of documentation I'm looking for. Not many people want to spend that kind of time, and I'm not even paid to do that. I only get paid on how many people read the article, so it's up to me how much time I put into it. And I feel like a lot of media is in that situation where they're getting paid by the click. It's easier for them to repeat a story that came from a news aggregator, and they're going to get those clicks no matter whether that is true or not. And so the desire to really get in and dig into a story, it's just not there anymore, because you're not getting rewarded for it generally. I just can't stop doing it because I'm a curious person. And so I'm like obsessed with some of these. I get obsessed with a story, and then I have to know, and then I will spend all of my free time doing this. And trying to get to the bottom of it, and hope and pray and keep my fingers crossed that people will click on it and want to read it, because that's the only way I'm going to get paid. But I don't think most people are that curious anymore.
Yeah. Reminder, follow Megan Fox Writer on Twitter, and follow her work that she does for PJ Media. Another thing I would just wanted to mention to kind of start wrapping this up is you talk about just this speed and, just how that whole situation has changed in terms of how people make money with news. And I feel like another example of that is with all this Uvalde reporting. Here's a tragedy that we have had so many different narratives that I can't even keep up. I think the latest one was that a report had come out that an officer had the opportunity to shoot the mass shooter outside of the school. And then it was like a day later, like, nope, that's not true. And so it's just like, we can't even get these stories straight because they're changing day by day.
There
Do
is
you not see
nothing
that?
worse. There's nothing worse than a live active shooter situation. And I have a rule about any live shooter situation. I don't comment on it and I don't write about it until uh, at least 48 hours. At least. You have to wait for the dust to settle. And it's kind of like watching a circus, watching the media try to beat one another to the story and how many victims and who died and what about the shooter. And I find it all very distasteful, to tell you the
Like a
truth.
game of telephone too. It's like, "Oh, she propped the door open. No, she didn't. There was a rock.
Hmm.
No, there wasn't." It's insane.
I think it's the 24-hour news cycle. Frankly, these 24-hour news stations have to fill the air somehow, and a live shooting is like, it's like the big money for them. And then, facts and being accurate just kind of goes out the window. I would love to see one of these days that if we have another mass shooting, um, that the shooter is never even named, and that he's just taken to prison or shot on the scene, and we never hear about him again. I mean, one of the things I will not do, and I don't do, is ever spread someone who does that through social media, or show their picture, or I just don't think it's necessary. I think that's a lot of why they do it. I think they do it because the media gives them so much attention, and people start digging into why did they do this, and I don't want to know why. I don't care. I just want it to stop, and I want our children protected. And I think the media has a real problem where they glamorize this kind of thing, and I don't like that at all.
Well, Megan, this has been a fascinating conversation. I'm sure one that we're going to unfortunately have to revisit at another time, as these
It's going to happen again, for
commonplace
sure.
one source
And we're
stories.
still
And,
and
and
we're
what's
still
worse than that
waiting.
is and what's worse than that is not only do we have one source stories, but we have super vague source stories, like someone familiar with the friend
Yeah.
of the event says.
My cousin's sister's boyfriend's little brother said, I mean, really, Fox, come on. I expect more than that. I mean, Jonathan Turley, who's a legal scholar, he was writing on Twitter yesterday about Fox confirming part of this story, but I would not say they did. If a news organization doesn't give you actual proof that something was confirmed, like a document, like a government document, like a piece of paper that says this was reported as rape from this doctor at this abortion clinic, no, I'm not going to believe anything I see on this story until I see actual evidence, and I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. Yeah, there's just so much you could say about this. I'm getting really sick and tired of just seeing the vague doctors say or experts say, or which
Yeah.
doctors, which experts, and like, how does someone become a misinformation expert? Like, that's another thing that I'm saying.
Here's a good
Misinformation
one.
experts say. I'm like,
Yesterday, somebody tagged me in a new NBC article about a lawsuit that's been filed against a Chick-fil-A in Decatur, from a trans person who claims that they suffered many years of sexual harassment at the restaurant. Okay, well, that's newsworthy. I'm reading the article, though, and one sentence says something about Chick-fil-A's well-known anti-LGBTQ behavior, some critics say. And that's what
oh,
it said.
critics.
Critic.
Okay.
Who? Who says this? And what behavior? I mean, journalists don't even answer the basic questions: who, what, why, when, where, how much, how many. That's what we need to answer. And if you haven't answered those questions, then you haven't done your job. And I also think in the situation where NBC is reporting this supposed anti-LGBTQ behavior, which they don't name and they don't actually say what it is,
We're giving
we
like
all
specific examples of.
yeah, we all know what they mean, and that is Dan Cathy giving money to Christian organizations. Well, that's not anti-LGBTQ behavior. That's free speech, and anybody has the right to give money to anybody they want for any purpose in America. In calling it anti-LGBTQ behavior, I'm really going to need more on that, NBC. You're going to need to flesh that out. You can't just drop that there and say critics say. Baloney. You just made that up. You don't have any critics sitting in. You didn't call any critics. Like you just put critics say so that you could say it. You see?
I mean, the other one that I see is widely reported. So your source is
Yes.
that other people other news organizations are saying it. This is what happened when me and a former colleague got into it one time when he had Rudy Giuliani on about the laptop back before we knew it was, well, some of us knew it was total baloney, and was challenging him on the way he treated Giuliani in the interview, he's like, well, this laptop is fake, it's Russian disinformation. I'm like, oh, how do you know? What's your source for that? And he says it's been widely reported, and I'm like, wait a minute, you're a reporter and your source is that it's widely reported. What?
Well, that's Glenn Kessler's argument at the Washington
Exactly.
Post.
Exactly. So now
If enough
widely
people
reported
repeat the
is now the
lie,
source.
if enough people repeat the lie, it is now a truth. It's now truth if enough people repeat it. And actually, I mean, that is kind of accurate, right? I mean, it's like with the ivermectin gunshot story. It didn't matter that we debunked that story, Christy. The narrative got out there, and that's what people believe. And I guarantee you, people will still believe this 10-year-old rape victim. They'll believe every bit of this story because they heard it so many times, and it was repeated to them so many times that when you come behind and go, whoa, 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 it doesn't matter. It's already sunk in. So the damage is done. Rush Limbaugh used to call this the drive-by media. They pick a target, they go by, they cause chaos and dissension and confusion, and they leave the people bleeding and standing there, pointing at each other, blaming each other for what just happened, and they move on to their next crime scene. I just, this is very usual. Rush was talking about this in the 90s. Okay, the media behaves this way when they have a narrative to push, and we just need to be aware of it. And I do think that their narrative is crumbling now. There's enough people like us out there, Christy, who are busting these narratives every day. This is what I do. I can make a full-time job out of just busting stupid stories that the press will run with.
I have
without
a weekly segment
checking.
that I do, and I've never realized that it would be so easy. And actually now it's hard to, like, how do I not make this so long? Because this is like too many examples each and every week of media malfeasance. It's insane and sad because I love journalism. Like, this was my dream job, and so for tenets now of journalism, like being a voice for the voiceless, or holding those in power accountable, or examining conflicts of interest and motivations, for those to just be like, what happened to those tenets of journalism? It's sad to me. I mean, on the one hand, we laugh, but it's just like, man, this is what's happened.
It is sad. One of the things that I have investigated over the years, many, many years, is corruption in family court, which is a topic that is really hard to look into because the trauma and the child abuse is overwhelming. And I did a 26 or 27 part investigative series on PJ Media about this in Missouri. I broke open a really big story there, and local press won't touch it. And they won't touch it because, and it doesn't matter how many documents I have to prove it. And I have all kinds of lawsuits. There's 6 lawsuits suing this particular guardian ad litem, Elaine Pudlowski. For corruption. I mean, it's clear. There's family after family after family saying the same things about this woman and her cohorts. But the local press doesn't want to dig into it. They get scared off by their lawyers, for one. Their legal teams will say, because their colleagues are the ones being scrutinized, other lawyers, they don't like that. And so they will scare the news organizations and say, you can't write this, we will get sued. I don't even think that's true. I've been reporting on this story for over a year. I have not been served with a lawsuit because I back up my stories with receipts. And I would love to have that lawsuit, by the way, because discovery would be wonderful. There's so much in discovery that I could get in discovery that I could never get with my own investigation. But these types of investigative stories are not done very often. I will give credit to NPR, though. In all NPR, as biased as they can be, they will also do actual investigative journalism that means something, that takes a long time. They did a wonderful story that kind of corroborated a lot of what I was writing about the foster care system and how the foster care system is stealing the Social Security checks of the foster care children, and they are left with nothing. These are orphan children who are supposed to get their Social Security held until they turn 18, and then that's supposed to be their money. Well, it turns out that the foster care agencies spent all that money, and the children are left with nothing when they get out at 18. And NPR did a wonderful expose on that. And yet I don't see other networks, picking it up and being like holding the government accountable. These are government agencies ripping off orphan children. Where is your outrage? Where is your soul? Whenever any journalist brings out or takes truth, to power and says to the American people, look at what the government is doing to people. Look at how the government is crushing these people and their livelihoods and taking away their college educations for their kids and stealing from children. It goes nowhere. And it's like left up to small independent journalists like me, or possibly the NPR will do like one magazine story, and then it doesn't go anywhere else, and nothing changes, and the legislators don't do anything. And it is so frustrating. I've had to take a break from the court stuff because nothing changes.
Yeah,
no one does anything.
It's so corrupt. Well, is there anything you want to let us know that you're working on right now or to keep an eye out for? Obviously, we want to stay on top of blowing apart this fake, appears to be fake story.
Yes, I am staying on that. Definitely staying on that, waiting for documents. I have more phone calls to make today. I will be calling as many people as I can in Indiana, trying to get my hands on the report that I hear is floating around, but I haven't seen yet. And I will bring you that. Please watch my Twitter feed. Follow me on pjmedia.com. You can find me there if you go to columnist and click on my name, you'll find all of my reporting on this topic so far. I've had at least 5 articles on this already that you can go and read. I have one behind a paywall. If you guys want VIP, it's great on PJ Media because you get live chats and all kinds of other stuff. You can use my promo code FOX for a discount if that's something that you want to do and support real news, because we really do try and bring you what really is going on. I'm interested in the truth, Christy. I'm not interested in pushing a narrative. At this point, I hate both Democrats and Republicans with a raging fire. I hate them all. I hate the government, and I want the government to stop persecuting people, and I hate liars. And I just want to get to the truth, because I feel like reality has been bent in so many ways that if I can help to clarify something, I'm going to do it. So, if that's the kind of reporting you would like, well, follow me and hopefully I won't disappoint.
Well, I think this has been such a fun conversation. I knew it would be. And because of that, I kept you late.
It's okay. It was fun. But I could do this all day.
Yeah, good. I'd like to do it again sometime. I'm sure, again, we'll have plenty of material to work with. But in the meantime,
yes.
like she said, please follow Megan Fox Writer on Twitter, and then PJ Media. Help support independent journalists like ourselves that are not just making money off of clicks and corporate dollars and, Pfizer, Procter Gamble payouts. We're just after the truth. Obviously, we're passionate, and any way that you guys can support us is so appreciated and so
that's
necessary.
why crowdfunding to me is so much more legitimate than these advertisements, right? We're not relying on advertisements on PJ Media for our VIP. It's all reader supported, and that's how my YouTube channel is too, because I'm asking people to, I have a merch store on my YouTube channel and we do funny t-shirts and stuff. I feel like when people like what you do, they will support it. I support entertainment and news that I enjoy, and I would rather have support directly from my readers and my listeners than I would from any advertisers. And I feel it's just more honest. I'm not
right. Do you want us to be accountable to you, the reader,
right,
or the watcher, or do you want us to be accountable to some big corporation?
Exactly.
I mean, that's what it kind of comes down to. Well, you have so much work to do because I don't even know how you do it. I'm still trying to figure all this out between the tech end of things and
it's summertime and I have 3 kids and like they're so bored and I'm trying to like entertain them when they're out of school and like other stuff.
Investigating and
yeah. But God bless them. They're so sweet. I was on with Fox News on Jesse Waters the other night. They invited me, and they do this when it happens very quickly. And it was Sunday when I got their invitation. and it said tomorrow. And for some reason, my ADD brain read that as Tuesday. And so on Monday, the day I'm supposed to be on Fox News, I'm sitting at the water park with my kids, and she's emailing me, confirming this, confirming that, and all my editor says, Megan, isn't this tonight? And I'm like, what? It is? And I had to go look I'm like, I better go check because I'm bad with dates. Sure enough, it's in 2 hours. And I'm sitting at the water park, but my children were so good. I was like, children, mommy's made a huge mistake. We have to go right now. And they were so sweet. We never left anywhere faster than that ever in my life. And I did make it, but the kids were they love what I do. They know what I do. And they get excited about it. And so they're pretty supportive. And they were like, you can't miss Fox. You can't miss Fox.
That's awesome.
That
Well,
was funny.
I mean, that's so cool that you were able to get that attention, and it is all just due to your hard work and just diving in. And we appreciate journalism like that for sure, because it's hard to find. So
It is, and I wish it would. But you know what, Christine, you and I should stay in touch because people like us who want to dig into the truth, we can help each other out and share information when things like this come up, and raise red flags with each other so that we can really boost the signal, because that's what it counts. You people out there, by the way, are the reason why this story got blown to bits. It wasn't really me. I'm just some idiot asking some questions, but you guys took it and you spread it among each other, and you made it go viral. You made that happen, and so you have to keep helping us do that. When we boost these things out to you and we say, hey, there's a problem here, that's the best thing you can do, is just retweet it, share it with people, continue asking the questions. That would never have happened if the people had not been like, yeah, this doesn't make any sense.
right.
So we can help each other out with this kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
independent journalists need to do that.
Yeah, obviously we need to come up against the beast and be more united, and sharing information and coming up against the Goliath, essentially. Well, thank you so much, Megan, and thank you all for tuning in. And this was live, but I will put something pretty together and upload that, to locals and all the other places that you can find me. You all know that. But thanks again. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye. Thank you, Megan.
Thanks for having me, Chrissy.